Hey, hi and welcome. Okay, we'll get to that in a second. But first, moment of truth. What is that? What is that? Sure, that's off. What is that? Why is it doing that? According to the brake fluid, it's pretty good. Apparently I got brakes now, so I bled the brakes. Here's what I did. Got my dot. I already used one full one because that was pretty much empty. When I took the other caliper off, I lost more than I thought, I guess. And I'll show you the little brake bleeder screw. Is this guy right here. What size is it? This is the $64 million question. 3/8 is a little loose, 10 millimeters a little loose, 9 millimeters too small, and 11/32 don't fit. So it's a variation of 3/8, a variation. So just be careful when you take it off that you don't strip it and stuff like that. I had to take the wheel off to be able to bleed it. I just used my little jar like that. I had an extra set of legs in there. My dad jumped on the brake. I think maybe about 12 pumps, and we had all the fluid coming out in a nice stream. And Dory is sitting on block so I can get in. And I haven't felt it yet, but oh, that's pretty good. That's really good. That's like really good. If it stays like that, like it feels really good. Then you'll drive it like 10 feet, and the brake will go, and then you got to pump it. It's like, oh, nope, need more. So that's good. So this is topped up with nice fresh fluid. It was just a bottle. Like what I did was, I'm going to show you guys something on the line here. When you're putting the line back, this here rusts. Make sure you clean that so it sits in there, so that your washers there seat properly, so you don't get any leaks. But feel that after you've pumped it a few times there, to feel it for nice and dry. It's just nice and rusty. Mind you, there's a bit of, what do you call it, oil spray on it there, but that's fine. Yeah, so as long as it's not on there. See, the rotors are already starting to rust. Not even a week old. Yeah, that's how it begins. The other side, I did the maintenance on that. I'm going to do the maintenance on the back ones a little bit later. But now I got to get the wheel back on it. And once I get the wheel back on it, got to torque that up again. And then, yeah, I go for a drive. And either it'll be a nice drive, or I'm going to crash into my uncle's place. I'm going to drive it around up here, up and down this road a few times before I take it out on the road, just to see. To scrub the brakes, the 30-30-30 rule. You go about 30 miles per hour. You hit the brakes. You don't try to put yourself through the windshield, but you put on the brakes, you know, moderately, 30 times. And then between each time, you let the brakes cool for 30 seconds. And that's how you scrub your brakes. Just so, that's what I read. Is what it is, you know. That's just one way I think of doing it. So happy that that's done. I still got to do the back. The back's gonna be easy because I could just jack up the rear differential and do both wheels at the same time for the brakes in there. So that shouldn't be too bad. In fact, I might not even have to. Oh no, on this one I do. Yeah, it's disc in the back, but yeah. Anyway, we'll talk about that later. Jar, make sure it's clean. So when the brake fluid comes out, I don't have there's a little kit you can get, and it's got a little hose, so you can do this with one man. But basically, it'll make life easier. But if not, you use two people. Basically, you catch the fluid when you I got like nice solid streams coming out. So if you got if it's like kind of like waty, or if you hear air coming out, you keep going until the air's, you know, out of it completely. So I cracked it. I heard the psh, and that was just the remaining air that was in the line. But I had put a vice grip on there, but I guess there was just enough in the caliper that it drained the reservoir. I put a vice grip on there, so I guess it helped to clamp the hose so I didn't lose as much fluid. But it's not so much losing the fluid, it's so that air doesn't go back up into the reservoir, right? Or into the other lines. Not so much the reservoir, but the other lines. So what I did is, like I say, I poured in a whole How much time do I got here? I got lots of time. I poured in a whole one of these. .3 braking fluid. Check your manual for whatever you need, but that's usually probably what going to be. Make sure that's on there tight. I'm going to do the power steering maybe next. Well, I'm going to do the oil change next, and then maybe the power steering. I'm going to do everything on this at some point. Go over the entire truck. But anyway, yeah, so what I did is I filled this up to the line, and it went down a little bit, so I didn't lose as much fluid as I thought, but it was enough that, you know, it took a couple of bleeds. But as I was bleeding it, whatever would come out there, I'd pour back into the top so you don't lose it. But again, make sure no contaminants are in your jar. There's still a little bit in there, but that's fine. I can pour that back in there. That way you don't, you know, you're not losing good fluid for nothing, and you just keep putting in. So when the air comes out, whatever you catch, just put back in the top of the reservoir, and you're good. And then once you see a solid stream and you don't see, and the brakes are good and hard, like my dad's like, oh, these brakes are good, you know. Like the brakes on this truck wasn't too bad. That's not the problem. That was with it. Was that the rotor and caliper were done. The other rotor's kind of it could be replaced, but the caliper's done. Make sure all these things are good and seated on there. One last check on that. Make sure they're all really good. I can see the bottom one. Yeah. So these are all looped up. Your pivot anchor, your pivot studs or whatever. And then there's a little cap. Where is it? Right here. You make sure you don't lose that, so that if you have to bleed it again, you can. And it just goes on like so. That's it. And it'll probably rot off or come off over time. So just get that on there. I'll do that. Make sure, check it out with my both fingers there. So that, make sure that's tight. Make sure you're not leaking there. Make sure everything's good, and yeah, there you go, good to go. All right, so there you go. So I know I wanted to show you the process, but I just had to get it done, and I needed my dad's help, so I didn't have all forever and a day to do this. So but now it's done, or at least that part. So now I should theoretically have a driving truck. So I'm gonna get it jacked up, get the wheel on it, get it all torqued up, and then go for the run.